When a quiet mountain community ignores the warnings, a chain of brutal and unexplainable deaths begins. I'm Mr. Midnight Hollow, your terrifying host. If you're already part of our community, your support means the world to us. Each like, comment, and share helps uncover more stories like this, or subscribe to see what rises from the depths of darkness and unfolds before you. Now, let's begin. I never thought I'd end up in a place like Bent Creek, a small patch of houses swallowed by the thick forest west of Asheville, North Carolina. But when your marriage crumbles and your credit score tanks, choices shrink fast. I took what I could afford, a rundown one-bedroom house on the edge of a dirt road, 30 minutes outside the city, surrounded by silence and pine. The real estate agent didn't say much, just handed me the keys and a contract barely stapled together. Some folks say the property's cursed, she joked. I laughed at the time, desperate enough not to care. But now I wish I'd listened. My name is Jason Murdoch, 48, former mechanic, divorced, broke, trying to restart my life in a home where the floors creaked even when I didn't move, and where the windows groaned against the cold mountain wind. But it was quiet, isolated. I thought it was what I needed. That illusion lasted exactly 3 nights. On the 3rd night, I woke up sweating in the dark. Something was wrong. I couldn't explain it, just this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't alone. The dogs, there were plenty in the neighborhood, even if you rarely saw the owners, started barking, not just 1 or 2, but all of them, like an alarm had gone off. It stopped suddenly, all at once, like someone flipped a switch. I stayed in bed, listening. Silence. Too much silence. The next morning, I met Maureen Stills. She lived 2 houses down, an old widow with skin like paper and eyes that watched too closely. "You're the new tenant," she said, sweeping her porch. Her voice was raspy, cracked from decades of cigarettes. "House has been empty for a while. Last guy didn't stay long." "Why?" I asked. She shrugged. "People come, people go. This road has its way." "You mean the house is haunted or something?" Maureen didn't smile. "I mean, the forest doesn't like strangers. And when the moon's high, best keep your lights off and doors locked." I half laughed. "Sounds like something out of a horror movie." She stared at me for a moment. "Just be careful. The land remembers things." The air felt heavier after that conversation. I went back inside, locked the door, and started checking windows. Bent Creek was too quiet, and the people were even quieter. A few days later, I met Terry McClellan. He delivered mail around the area and seemed to be the only person under 60 in the whole stretch of road. Friendly guy, talked with a North Carolina drawl that dragged every vowel. "You in the old Wexler place?" he asked, nodding toward my house. "Yeah, that one's got stories." "Everybody keeps saying that," I said. "No one wants to explain." He scratched his beard, looking out toward the tree line. "You'll see, if you're unlucky." "What does that mean?" He leaned in slightly. "Keep track of the moon. Watch how the animals act. If the dogs go quiet, don't go outside. And if you hear something breathing near your window, don't open the blinds. Just wait it out." That night, I stayed awake. Around midnight, I heard something moving near the porch. Slow steps, dragging weight. Then a sniff, wet and deep, like a beast testing the air. My skin turned to ice. I sat still, barely breathing. The footsteps circled the house once, then faded into the woods. The next morning, I stepped out and saw tracks in the soft dirt. They weren't human, too wide, too long, 5 toes, but claws where nails should have been. I measured one with a ruler, over 16 inches from heel to toe. That wasn't a bear. That wasn't any animal I knew. Maureen passed by on her morning walk. She saw the tracks, paused, and looked at me. You didn't sleep last night, did you? No, she nodded slowly. Good. That means you might survive the month. The following days passed in a fog of unease. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every time the wind stirred the trees or a branch cracked under its own weight, I jolted awake. The house began to feel less like a refuge and more like a trap. 4 thin walls standing between me and whatever was pacing out there in the dark. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe coyotes. Maybe a bear wandered too far from the Blue Ridge. But those thoughts fell apart every time I saw the prints again. They weren't gone. In fact, each night, they got closer to the house. They started near the tree line, then the edge of the yard, then right by the back steps. One morning, I found deep gouges along the wooden porch railing, as if something had dragged nails down the grain with intent. I called the local animal control. A man named Dwayne Schultz came out, big guy with a buzz cut and zero humor. Whatever's doing this, he said, crouching by the tracks. It's not a mountain lion, not even close. A bear? He shook his head. These claws are too long and too narrow. Bears walk flat-footed. This thing's walking like it's part human. He looked up at me. You sure you haven't seen anything? I heard something, a few nights ago, breathing, walking around the porch. You see eyes, reflection, anything? I hesitated. No, just sounds. He stood up, brushing off his jeans. I'll file a report, but don't expect anyone to come out here. This area is considered too rural for nightly patrol. Your best bet's a firearm. I don't own one. Dwayne pulled a business card from his jacket. Buy a shotgun, or borrow one. Just don't go outside after dark. Whatever this thing is, if it's bold enough to get this close, it's not scared of people. That warning sat heavy in my chest. The next evening, I saw Terry again at the mailbox cluster near the entrance of the road. He was leaning on his old Jeep, lighting a cigarette. You called animal control? He asked. Yeah, they had no answers. He exhaled smoke, watching the tree line. They won't. Not for this. You keep talking like you know what's out there. Just tell me. Terry was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I've lived here all my life. My grandfather told stories when I was a kid. Stories about something old, something cursed in these woods. He called it the Walker, said it used to be a man, still is. Sometimes. I blinked. You're saying this is a werewolf. I'm saying people go missing when the moon's full. Livestock gets torn to pieces. And every few years, someone finds blood in places it shouldn't be. The cops look the other way. Too many big landowners out here. They don't want noise. That's insane. Terry took a drag from his cigarette. You still think that after the tracks you saw? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, I stayed up with all the lights off, flashlight by my side, hammer in my hand. I sat by the living room window, staring out through a gap in the curtain. Hours passed, just wind, just crickets, just a flash of movement near the fence. Something tall, on 2 legs. Its shape was impossible to track. 1 second it crouched, the next it stood. I felt my heart pounding, sweat pooling behind my knees. It didn't come close to the house, just paced the yard like it was waiting. Then, the dogs started again. But this time, they weren't barking to warn. They were howling, desperate, broken sounds that echoed down the dirt road. At sunrise, I went outside. The fence was partially collapsed. Something had leaned or rammed into it with enormous strength. I followed the trail back toward the trees and found a smear of blood on one of the trunks. A deep gash in the bark. Whatever it was, it had been injured. But it hadn't left. The prints led back toward the creek, into the brush, like it was still circling the neighborhood. Later that day, I drove into Asheville, to an outdoor supply shop on the edge of town. I bought a hunting flashlight, a canister of bear spray, and, after much hesitation, a used 12-gauge shotgun from a pawn shop down the road. When I returned to Bent Creek, Maureen was waiting at the end of her driveway. "You saw it?" she said flatly. I didn't deny it. Her voice softened, and for the first time I saw the fear behind her eyes. "If it came that close to you, it's only a matter of time. You have to decide now. Either you leave or you find a way to stop it. Because it won't stop." "How do I stop something like that?" She looked over her shoulder toward the deep woods. "You don't, but there's someone who might know how." "Who?" She pointed past the curve in the dirt road, where the trees grew thick and the streetlights ended. "Ask about Wayne Ballard. He's the one that lives past the bend. But don't go tonight, not when the moon's nearly full." That night, I dreamed of eyes, golden, glowing, locked on mine. A hunger I could feel from across the room, and when I woke, the shotgun was still beside me, but my front door was unlocked. The following morning began with sirens, the first I'd heard in Bent Creek. I was in the kitchen, pouring black coffee with hands that still shook from the night before, when the sound echoed down the dirt road. 2 cruisers passed by my house, kicking up clouds of dust. Then an ambulance, slower, more hesitant. I stood at the window, mug halfway to my lips, watching the red lights vanish behind the bend in the road. 10 minutes later, I was walking toward the noise. Neighbors stood near their gates, but no one moved close. Even Maureen, who seemed fearless in her own quiet way, watched from behind her screen door. I passed Terry's Jeep near the community mailbox. He wasn't in it. The commotion was centered just beyond the turn, near the woods, close to where I'd seen the prints disappear days before. A man lived in a makeshift shack there, or so I'd heard. A drifter named Daniel Hart, former Army, now just another forgotten soul who didn't like being seen. According to whispers, he'd been around the area for years, kept to himself. Sometimes showed up at the gas station to buy jerky and beer, then disappeared again. Now he wasn't disappearing by choice. I kept my distance, standing behind a tree. The deputies were crouched near the edge of a clearing. One of them retched loudly. A coroner, gloved and pale, shook his head and zipped up an empty body bag. More for show than anything else because there wasn't a body to collect. Not really. From where I stood, I could see what was left of Daniel. Blood. So much blood. A few bones, ribs shattered and spread across the leaves like someone had picked through his chest. No head, no hands. And there, beside the remains, were prints again. Huge, inhuman. The wind shifted. I smelled something foul, rot and copper. Then I noticed Terry standing off to the side, jaw clenched, arms crossed. He didn't look surprised, just tired. I approached him slowly. "You knew him?" I asked. Terry nodded once. "Not well. He wasn't the kind to make friends." "What happened to him?" Terry glanced over his shoulder, lowered his voice. "They'll say animal attack, maybe a bear or a cougar. But you and I both know that's not it. They're going to cover this up? They always do." The deputies began setting up yellow tape, pushing back the few onlookers who had ventured closer. I noticed one of the officers looking into the trees, like he expected something to come rushing out. Terry lit a cigarette, hands steady. "This happened before, same way. Same kind of mutilation, 5 years ago, and 5 years before that. You think it's the same creature. I think it's never left." We stood there in silence for a moment. Then he added, "People think the woods out here are empty. They're not. There's something in them, something old. And every few years it takes what it wants. I looked back toward the remains. Why Daniel? Why now? Terry flicked ash into the dirt. Maybe he was in the wrong place. Maybe he got too close. Or maybe the thing's just getting bold again. Back at home, I locked the doors and covered the windows with thick blankets. I dug the shotgun shells out of the box and loaded the weapon with clumsy, shaking fingers. I didn't want to need it, but after what I saw, not having it felt suicidal. That night, I sat with the lights off and waited. The moon had risen fat and pale behind the trees, washing everything in silver. Around 2 a.m, I heard something knock against the side of the house. Not wood on wood, not a branch in the wind. A weight, a deliberate push. Then breathing. Close. Right outside the wall. Low, guttural breaths. The air seemed to thicken around me. I pressed my back against the wall with the shotgun in my lap, finger trembling over the trigger. It moved along the wall, dragging something, a claw, maybe, across the siding. A slow scrape that went from one corner of the house to the other. Then footsteps retreating toward the trees. When it was finally gone, I sat frozen until dawn, muscles locked, unable to sleep. At sunrise, I stepped outside. Blood. On my front steps. Not much. Just a smear. But it was fresh, still wet. Something had come up to my door and bled on my porch. I followed the trail back to the woods. Halfway down the path, I found a dead deer, or what was left of one. Its throat had been torn open, its spine was exposed. It hadn't been hunted. It had been torn apart. I heard movement behind me and spun, shotgun raised. Terry stood there, hands up. "Easy," he said. "I saw the blood on your porch. Figured it came back." "It killed again." "Yeah, and it's not hiding anymore." I looked at the deer's remains, then at Terry. "This thing, whatever it is, it's hunting in broad moonlight. Because it knows no one's going to stop it." Then he said, "It's time you met Wayne." Terry led the way down a narrow trail that split off from the main road. An overgrown path that disappeared into the woods like a scar. The trees pressed in tighter here, their trunks older, their branches tangled like fingers. We walked in silence for 10 minutes, maybe more, until the dirt gave way to gravel, and the gravel gave way to flattened earth packed down by years of footsteps. Finally, we reached the edge of a clearing. There stood a house, or what was left of one. The roof sagged, patched with tin sheets. The walls were warped, eaten by moisture and time. A porch leaned at an angle, and every window was boarded from the inside. This was the end of the dirt road. This was where the forest swallowed everything. "That's Wayne Ballard's place," Terry said, keeping his voice low. "He's been out here 20 years. People think he's off, harmless, but he's not." "Why him?" Terry didn't answer right away. He took a breath, then said, "Because he never leaves this place during the full moon. Because the killings stopped for a few years after he disappeared for a while. Because sometimes people see things moving around his place at night that don't look quite human." I approached the porch. Each step felt heavier than the last. I knocked on the door. No answer. Knocked again. I was about to speak when I heard a voice from behind the door. "Go away." "Wayne?" I called. "I need to talk to you." The voice came again, hoarse and angry. "Didn't you hear me? Leave." Terry stepped forward. "It's about the killings." Silence. Then, the sound of a lock clicking. The door opened 2 inches. Wayne Ballard stared through the gap. A gaunt man in his 60s with long gray-streaked hair and yellowish skin. His eyes didn't look right. The whites were tinged with red, and his irises were a pale amber. Not contacts, not lighting, Something else. He looked at me first, then Terry. Get inside. Fast. The interior smelled of damp wood and iron. Newspapers were taped over the few windows that weren't boarded up. A single lantern hung from a nail in the ceiling, casting shadows that danced across the peeling walls. The floor was littered with traps, chains, and strange symbols scratched into the wood. Circles, triangles, lines that made no sense to me. You came here for answers, Wayne said, sitting on a crate. So ask. I looked at him, at the room, at the drawings. What are you? He laughed once without humor. I'm cursed. That's what I am. By what? Blood, he said. Old blood. Family blood. Wayne explained that he was the seventh son in a family of 7 sons, that his mother had tried to stop it with prayers and fire and silver, but none of it mattered. That he had changed for the first time when he was 13, during a thunderstorm. He'd woken up naked, covered in blood, and his father had disappeared that same night. I ran, he said. I lived in the woods. I learned how to control it. Not stop it, but control where I went, what I did. Terry spoke. You stopped for a few years. The killing stopped. I chained myself up, deep in the forest. But the chains broke last year. I haven't found anything that can hold me since. You're saying this thing, it's you? I asked. Only during the moon's rise. I don't remember it clearly, just flashes. I wake up sore, bleeding. I try to stay away from people, but the hunger's stronger now. It's changing. Terry didn't look shocked. He looked resigned. I wanted you to hear it from him, he said. Because if we don't stop it, more people will die. I don't want to hurt anyone, Wayne said, voice cracking. But I can't stop this. Not anymore. I looked at the traps on the floor, the broken chains hanging from the walls. You expect us to what? Let you keep killing? I'm not asking for forgiveness, Wayne said. I'm asking for time. There's a man in Georgia, an old occultist. He says he can cure it, but I need to make it through this cycle. How long? 3 nights. 3 nights until the full moon faded. Terry stood by the door, thinking. We could try to lock him up. He's broken steel chains, I said. What's going to hold him? Wayne raised a hand. There's another option, bait. We both looked at him. You set a trap. Use me. Lure it. It? I asked. He nodded slowly. I'm not the only one anymore. The words hit me like a punch. There's another? There's more than one, Wayne said. I felt it, smelled it. There's a new one now. And it doesn't care who it kills. Before I could ask anything else, the lights flickered. Outside, the dogs started barking again. Then they stopped. All at once. Wayne grabbed a flashlight and pulled a panel from the floor, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the house. You both need to leave. Now. Why? He looked at the window. Because I smell blood, and it's not mine. As we turned to leave, a scream ripped through the woods, high, sudden, and brutally cut short. Wayne's eyes went wide. It started again. The scream faded, swallowed by the forest. For a few seconds, no one moved. Not me, not Terry, not even Wayne. We just stood there, frozen, listening to the nothing that came after. The kind of silence that didn't feel empty, but full of something watching. Wayne moved first, slamming the floor panel shut. Get out, he hissed. You don't want to be here when it comes. Terry grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the door. Come on. We have to get back. That scream came from your side of the road. We ran. Fast. Branches tore at my face. My boots slipped in the wet dirt. The flashlight Wayne gave us barely cut through the thick dark. I tripped once, slammed into the ground, nearly lost the shotgun slung over my shoulder. But I got up and kept going. When we reached my property, the air was thick with the scent of copper and earth. A heavy fog had settled low to the ground. The fence was down, not pushed or climbed over, but torn apart. Wooden slats split clean in two, driven into the mud like spears. Terry raised his own flashlight and swept the beam across the yard. That's when we saw it. Blood. Sprayed across the porch, across the siding, across the mailbox. I ran up the steps, heart in my throat. The front door was open, just barely, hanging on one hinge. The frame was cracked, split from top to bottom. Inside, furniture was overturned, the couch shredded. The table smashed. My flashlight shook in my hand as I stepped through the entryway. There were drag marks on the floor, long, thick streaks of red leading from the living room to the hallway and back toward the kitchen. Something had been here, something big, and it had taken someone with it. We followed the trail out the back door, through the yard, down toward the edge of the forest. There, lying face down in the grass, was what was left of Howard Pike, the retired soldier who lived 4 houses down. His body was mutilated, not eaten, not entirely, but torn, like something had raged against him for long minutes. His throat was open, his eyes were missing, his arm was 10 feet from the rest of him. Terry knelt beside him, stunned. He was just trying to help. He always tried to help. I stood there, staring at the horror in front of me, my mind trying to catch up. It wasn't Wayne. No, Terry muttered. This was something else. Wayne's kills aren't like this. This is pure destruction. Then it's real, I said. There is another. Terry stood. We need to tell the others. They need to know this isn't just stories anymore. We spent the rest of the night waking the neighborhood. People didn't want to believe it, but they couldn't deny what they saw. The body, the blood, the torn gate, and the look on Maureen's face when we told her. She wasn't surprised. She just closed her eyes and whispered, "It's like before." I asked her what she meant. She took a deep breath and sat down on her porch. 40 years ago, she said, there was a killing spree in Bent Creek. 4 people torn apart, all of them found near the woods. The town blamed wild dogs. Some said a cougar. But my father, he knew better. He said it was a man who changed at night. He said the curse would come back when the moon burned brightest. No one's ever mentioned that, Terry said. They don't want to remember. I looked toward the forest, the trees swaying under the weight of the wind. We can't wait, I said. If it killed Howard, it'll come again. It's moving closer. What do you want to do? Terry asked. Set a trap. Use Wayne. Let it come to him. He's too weak to fight it. We won't let him fight it alone. We returned to Wayne's shack at dawn. He was waiting on the porch, a long hunting knife across his lap. It's here, isn't it? He asked. I nodded. It killed Howard. Wayne looked away, his face hard. Then it's getting stronger. We want to use you as bait. He didn't flinch. I figured. You said you could feel it, track it. I can, he said, but that also means it can track me. We'll use that. Terry spoke next. We build a cage, a real one, reinforce it. We make it come to you, then we take it down. You think bullets can stop it? Wayne asked. We have to try. Wayne looked down at his hands, thick, scarred, trembling. I'll do it, he said, but don't miss. If it kills me, it'll take my strength, and then you'll never stop it. That night, we started building the cage. Chains, steel, locks from the scrapyard Terry had access to. We welded bars, dug anchors, poured quick-dry concrete into the dirt. We placed it behind Wayne's cabin, near the clearing. No neighbors, no civilians. It would be finished by the next night. Wayne stepped inside the frame of the cage once, testing the space. If it comes, he said, and I changed too soon. You better run. Then he looked at me, and his voice dropped to a whisper. Because if it gets inside me, if I lose control, I won't stop either. The trap was ready by nightfall. The cage stood like a steel skeleton behind Wayne's shack, locked into the earth with chains as thick as a man's wrist. We had reinforced the bars with scrap metal and welded the joints ourselves. It wasn't pretty, but it was solid. The kind of thing you'd use to hold a wild animal. Or, in this case, something worse. Wayne sat inside it as the sun dipped below the tree line, sweat on his forehead despite the chill in the air. He was shirtless, wrists bound with heavy shackles attached to the frame. His chest rose and fell quickly, not from fear, but anticipation. His body was already twitching, muscles tightening, veins pulsing under the skin. "You sure you can hold off the transformation?" Terry asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. "No," Wayne said, "but I can try to delay it." He looked at me. "Once I'm gone, once it starts, don't talk to me. Don't open that cage. Whatever happens, no matter what I say, it's not me anymore." We nodded. The plan was simple. Wait for the other creature, the new one, to come. Wayne would lure it in with scent, blood, presence. Once it appeared, we would draw it into range and take it down. If it came, we didn't have to wait long. By midnight, the air changed. The forest went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then the dogs began again, not barking, not warning, whimpering, hiding, fleeing. Terry and I crouched behind a pile of debris about 20 feet from the cage, shotguns loaded, flashlights off. The darkness was near total, broken only by the pale gleam of moonlight through the treetops. Wayne began to tremble violently. His back arched. His fingers bent unnaturally. He was fighting it, every inch of his body soaked with strain. And then we heard it, footsteps, heavy, wet, moving with purpose through the brush. It wasn't Wayne. The new one had arrived. It came into view like a shadow dragging itself out of a nightmare. Taller than Wayne's transformed form, broader. Its fur was darker, almost black, and matted with something thick. Blood? Mud? Hard to tell. Its face was wrong. Elongated, with eyes that gleamed yellow-white in the dark. Its mouth opened, showing rows of jagged, uneven teeth. Not like a wolf, not like any animal I'd ever seen. It was twisted, evolved into something made only to kill. Wayne growled inside the cage. Low, animalistic. His body had begun to change, spine lengthening, fingers turning to claws. But he was still partially human. He still had control. The creature circled the cage, sniffing. It didn't charge. It didn't roar. It was smart. It knew this was a trap. And it didn't care. It launched itself at the cage with horrifying speed, slamming its weight against the steel, trying to rip the bars apart. Wayne howled in agony as the thing slashed at him, claws dragging across his chest, slicing flesh. Terry stood and opened fire. The shotgun blast struck the creature in the side. It staggered but didn't fall. Instead, it turned, eyes finding us instantly. Then it charged. I fired next. My shot hit it in the shoulder, spinning it off balance but not stopping it. Terry tried to reload, but the thing was too fast. It was on him in seconds. The sound of bones breaking was louder than the gunfire. Terry screamed, one short, brutal sound, and then his body hit the dirt in a tangle of limbs. The creature tore into him like a dog into meat, biting, ripping, pulling. I screamed and fired again. This time the blast hit it in the side of the head. It staggered, wounded, but still alive. Inside the cage, Wayne had fully transformed. He was roaring, clawing, straining against the chains. His eyes met mine for a single horrifying second, not pleading. Warning. The creature turned from Terry's body and came for me. I ran. No plan, No strategy. Just pure instinct. I ducked between trees, branches whipping my face, lungs burning. Behind me, the thing pursued, breathing heavy, crashing through the forest like a storm. I tripped and fell hard against a root, gun slipping from my hands. It was over. The creature pounced. And then something hit it mid-air. Wayne, free from the cage, covered in blood, transformed beyond anything I had seen. He slammed into the beast, both of them tumbling through the trees, tearing into each other with claws and teeth. The sound of their fight was nothing but violence, snarls, flesh tearing, wood splintering. I scrambled for the shotgun, got it back in my hands, and stood. The two creatures circled each other now, Wayne limping, the new one bleeding from the face, eyes blinded on one side. Then it turned and fled, crashing into the trees, disappearing into the forest. Wayne collapsed, panting, his body already beginning to shrink, to change back. I ran to him, kneeling beside the broken, bleeding man. "Did I stop it?" he asked, voice hoarse. "For now," I said, "but it'll come back." Wayne nodded weakly. "Then next time, you kill it. No hesitation." His eyes rolled back. He passed out. The cage was destroyed. Terry was dead, and the new beast, the real monster, was still out there. Wayne was unconscious for hours. I dragged him back to what was left of the shack, alone. His body was half transformed, bones still stretched, skin torn in places, covered in patches of fur. He was heavy, nearly 250 pounds of dead weight. I pulled him across the clearing, 1 inch at a time, teeth clenched against the burning in my shoulders. By the time I got him inside, the sky had begun to turn gray. I collapsed in the corner of the shack, breathing hard, staring at Terry's empty rifle across the room. The air reeked of blood and smoke and sweat. Outside, the birds started again, early morning sounds that felt like mockery. Terry was dead. We didn't even bury him. His body was still in the forest, or what was left of it. I couldn't go back there alone. Around midday, Wayne stirred. His body had mostly returned to its human shape, though his wounds hadn't healed like before. He sat up slowly, grimacing, pressing one hand to his ribs. "Where is it?" he asked. "Gone, for now." He didn't respond, just stared at the floor. "We can't wait for it to come back," I said. "We have to find it first. Kill it before it kills again." Wayne nodded. "You don't understand. It's faster, smarter. It's not like me, but you heard it. You slowed it down." "Barely." He struggled to his feet, using the wall for support. His skin was pale and his breathing was shallow. But there was something in his eyes, rage, guilt, determination. "We don't have time," he said. "It'll hunt tonight. It always comes back stronger. What do you need?" He looked at me, jaw tight. "Silver. Bullets, knives, anything. It's the only thing that hurts it." "I don't have silver." "There's a man," he said. "Old hunter named Frank Talley, lives in Candler, 15 miles west. He used to track creatures like this. He's paranoid, reclusive, and mean as hell, but he'll have what we need." I didn't ask how Wayne knew that. I just grabbed the keys. We drove out in silence. The town faded behind us, replaced by winding back roads and dense forest. Wayne sat slumped in the passenger seat, wrapped in a bloodied blanket, sunglasses hiding his changing eyes. Frank's house was more fortress than home. Steel doors, barred windows, motion detectors in the trees. He didn't open the door at first, just shouted through the intercom, "Go away!" Wayne stepped forward. "You still believe in the old things, Frank?" There was a pause, then a buzz. The door unlocked. Frank Talley was in his 70s, built like a man who had never stopped preparing for war. His beard was white and unkempt, his eyes sharp, suspicious. He looked Wayne up and down. "Still alive, huh?" "Barely." Frank let us in. The inside of his house was a museum of death. Mounted heads, racks of weapons, jars filled with things I didn't want to identify. "You said you needed silver," Frank said. Wayne nodded. Frank walked into a back room and returned with a wooden case. Inside were silver-tipped bullets, knives, and a compact crossbow with bolts gleaming like polished ice. "I made these in '94, he said. "Used them once on something up north. Didn't die easy." He handed me the crossbow. "You know how to use this?" "I'll learn." Wayne took a handful of bullets. "Thank you." Frank eyed him. "If you lose control, I'll put one in your head." "Fair." We returned to Bent Creek by sunset. The trap was gone. The fight was coming. We set up at my house, the most isolated point now that Wayne's place was compromised. We reinforced the windows, rigged motion sensors, and placed bear traps in the yard. I loaded the crossbow and kept the shotgun close. Wayne sat on the floor, sharpening the silver knife with slow, precise strokes. "Tonight's the last night of the full moon," he said. "It'll either die, or we will." At 10:42 p.m., the first alarm tripped. Then came the smell, thick, metallic, burning the inside of my nose. The same stench I'd caught before the first killing. Wayne stood, his body already shifting, bones cracking, muscles swelling. "It's close." We turned off the lights. Waited. Outside, the air pulsed with tension. Then the sound of steel snapping. One of the bear traps, then another. Something was stepping carefully, slowly, methodically. The motion detector light clicked on, and there it was. The beast. Its left eye was gone from our last fight, its fur matted with blood. But it moved like it didn't feel pain. It stalked toward the house with absolute purpose. Wayne looked at me. "We end it here." The creature stepped into the light. Its one remaining eye glowed pale in the darkness. Blood stained its chest. Muscles rippled beneath thick black fur. The ground seemed to bend under its weight as it walked, not ran, toward the house, like it had no reason to rush. It knew we were trapped inside. Wayne's transformation was nearly complete. He stood by the back door, taller now, jaw elongated, claws flexing. But his eyes, golden and bloodshot, still carried a sliver of humanity. He turned to me and spoke, voice low and warped. "Keep the crossbow ready. When I get it down, you fire." I nodded, fingers tightening around the weapon. The creature reached the porch. Boards cracked under its weight. It pressed one massive hand against the door and pushed. Slowly, deliberately. The frame groaned, then snapped. Wood splinters rained down as the front door burst inward. I fired. The silver bolt struck its shoulder. The creature howled, not in pain, in fury. It barreled forward, claws tearing through the couch, flipping the dining table. I scrambled back as Wayne launched himself at the beast, both monsters colliding in a brutal tangle of muscle and fury. They slammed into the wall, shaking the whole house. I grabbed another bolt, reloaded. The fight moved fast, claws slashing, jaws snapping. Blood hit the walls. Furniture exploded under their weight. Wayne was faster, more precise. The other one was relentless, unhinged. It bit into Wayne's arm and tore flesh free. Wayne roared, tackled it to the ground, and bit into its neck. The creature rolled, slammed him into the floor, and raked claws across his chest. I fired again. The second bolt hit its thigh. The creature turned on me, fast, faster than I expected, and lunged. I dove behind the kitchen island as its claws tore through the wood above me. Wayne tackled it mid-air, They crashed through the wall into the yard. I ran outside, shotgun in hand, heart pounding. The cold hit me like a slap. The moon above was blindingly bright, full and heavy. They fought in the dirt, surrounded by broken bear traps and debris. The beast lifted Wayne and slammed him down with bone-breaking force. Wayne didn't move. The creature turned to me. I fired the shotgun. The blast hit it square in the chest. It staggered. I fired again. It fell to its knees. Then, from behind, Wayne rose, body broken, bleeding but still alive. He grabbed the silver knife, charged, and drove it deep into the creature's spine. The beast let out a final guttural sound and collapsed, twitching, then still. Blood pooled under it. Wayne fell beside it, coughing, breathing hard. "It's over," I said. Wayne looked up at me, his human eyes returning. "It was never just one," he whispered. "What?" "There are more. Out there, waiting." His body began to shake. His skin turned pale. The wounds weren't healing. He looked at me, and I saw peace for the first time in his expression. "This time," he said, "let me go." I nodded. He closed his eyes. His breathing stopped. I sat there in the dirt beside two corpses, one man, one monster, unsure which was which anymore. Dawn came. The police arrived hours later, called by neighbors who heard the destruction. They asked questions. I gave them what they wanted to hear. A bear attack, self-defense, wild animals. They believed enough of it to leave me alone. They took the bodies, filed the report, closed the case. Terry was gone. Howard, too. Wayne, and the man who became a monster to stop a worse one, buried without a headstone. Weeks passed. I left Bent Creek, moved east, bought a trailer near a lake. I don't talk to people much, but sometimes at night, when the wind's right and the forest is quiet, I think I hear footsteps outside my door. And the dogs? They start barking. Then they go silent. Just like before. Jason's final night in Asheville stands as a savage reminder that sometimes the real monsters wear human skin by day and shed it only when the moon commands them. The hunt may be over for now, but deeper in the woods, something else stirs, waiting for the next full moon. We'll be here to see what crawls out next. If you felt the dread creeping in as the blood soaked the soil, hit the like button. Tell us in the comments, what moment haunted you the most? And don't keep this secret to yourself. Share it with someone who still thinks werewolves are just fairy tales. Finally, if you've got the nerve, subscribe to Mr. Midnight Horror and ring that bell. Because next time the beasts come knocking, you'll want the shadows on your side.